Disclaimer. All of the opinions in this video are my own. Everything seen in this video has been taken from publicly available sources, and any footage or screenshots are covered under the doctrine of fair use. This video is purely made for educational purposes, and every effort has been made to ensure the accuracy of the alleged statements. But I am not legally responsible for content published by third parties. FiveM, the RP platform that has single-handedly revived GTA 5 while also generating millions of dollars for streamers, developers, server owners, and Rockstar. However, FiveM's history has been plagued by people who want to abuse the platform for all it's worth. And now, one developer has shown just how easy it is to get away with stealing millions of dollars from other developers. Over the last 6 months, an investigation into one of the biggest script sellers has unveiled levels of fraud the FiveM community has never seen before. Alleged asset decryption, TOS violations, evidence tampering, and even theft. With it believed, this seller has siphoned over $2 million from reselling stolen developers' code. And CFX not only knows about it, but also profits from it. But now, I hope to shine a light on the dark reality for FiveM's developers, having their livelihoods ruined while CFX does nothing to stop it. FiveM as a whole has been dealing with major problems since being bought by Rockstar. Just a few months ago, a document was posted by FiveM's original developers that detailed a tough transition to Rockstar's ownership, having most people think that FiveM was soon to be shut down. What wasn't known to the public at the time of this information being released, however, is that behind the scenes of FiveM was in an even worse state than we could imagine. Except instead of the FiveM creators being taken advantage of, it's the scripters who are having millions of dollars stolen from them. Scripters are the people developing all of the extra features we come to expect with RP servers. Features like lockpicking, hospitals, missions, bank system, races, etc. These developers are able to create and then sell their scripts on their own stores, and CFX even offers an encryption service to ensure their work can't be copied and resold. However, CFX, the creators, and Tebex, the company that handles FiveM's transactions, take 20% of all of the revenue generated through every avenue of FiveM, including the scripters. But while most of these scripters adhere to all of CFX's terms, an owner of one store was recently accused this month of stealing millions of dollars from other scripters, while CFX turns a blind eye. Meet Quasar, the owner of one of the largest script selling sites across all of FiveM. With a community of over 30,000 customers, this site and the scripts they sell were used on upwards of 20% of all FiveM servers across the platform. With this number of customers and servers, it won't be surprising to hear that they are able to generate upwards of $80,000 worth of revenue each month just off their scripts alone. In fact, their company was so trusted that they even ran their own coding school called Quasar University, where his team would teach you all the necessary skills related to coding and scripts, mostly related to FiveM servers. It really can't be understated how big of a player Quasar was in the FiveM world. For years, Quasar was seen as one of the most trusted sellers, and had partnerships with many of the other script sellers in the community. But what all of his customers and partners didn't know is that for years, Quasar's success has been built off the back of other developers. It all started in March of this year when Quasar had released a new UI on their store. The UI was an upgraded version of the HUD and pause menu that we are used to in vanilla GTA 5. However, a dev team named ZeusX, or ZSX for short, quickly noticed how Quasar's new UI was nearly identical to the UI that they had released a year prior. Looking at both previews side by side, it's not hard to see why Zeus was concerned that it may have been stolen. The ZeusX team would then create an announcement calling for accountability and removal of their assets from Quasar's store. But being a much smaller voice than someone like Quasar, their pleas would mostly fall on deaf ears, but not to everyone. Shortly after this, a bunch of other dev teams would begin launching an investigation into some of the other scripts available on Quasar's store, and what they ended up finding was levels of theft that the FiveM community had never seen before. On August 25th, a website called Creator Justice was formed by a coalition of these developers looking to see justice brought to the alleged fraud from Quasar. This website held evidence archives of Quasar allegedly stealing scripts, their suspicious activity on script leaking websites, and even ties to a decryption service. Since the date this website was formed, there have been over 11 different scripts that Quasar has been accused of stealing code from, with new evidence still being found as you're watching this. For reference, most of the images, media, and video shown for the evidence is provided by FiveM Database. FiveM Database is a compliance and blacklisting tool made by and for the FiveM community. From looking at the screenshot, you can clearly tell that in most sections, the code is practically identical. Countless examples were found of Quasar's code being identical to ones owned by other developers. Here's an example from a casino script made by Dodgewin. By putting Quasar's script and then overlapping it with the original, you can clearly notice the code is the exact same, suggesting that Quasar had simply copy and pasted it. Here is another example from the dev team VMS. Comparing them the same way, putting Quasar's over VMS, shows that they are once again identical. From talking with the Creator Justice team, they have assured me that similarities like this in code would be the equivalent of you walking into your kitchen, grabbing a bunch of ingredients, and coming out with Coca-Cola. It is simply impossible. These are just two examples of over 50 screenshots that show comparable levels of theft of these developers' code. Despite the mountain of evidence alleging Quasar's theft, he would continue to claim innocence publicly, instead insinuating the community was only targeting him for being a massive player in the scripting world. But that narrative would quickly change when the most egregious example of his theft would come to light, and that is with the case of Rep-Scripts NPC interaction. Within the code of Rep-Script, you can clearly see a line of placeholder text that reads, "Hi Mom, talk to NPC." Hi Mom is the name of a Vietnamese RP server that the developer of this script used to work for. That placeholder text being left over isn't a big deal since it doesn't harm the actual code at all, but it would become a very big deal when that same line of Vietnamese text was also found in the same script as Quasar. This was more than enough proof to turn the community against Quasar, and despite failed attempts to clear his name, their store would end up being blacklisted by the most reputable community-driven organization known as Warden. This isn't even an alleged case of theft, as the evidence proved to be too great for even Quasar to refute, and he would publicly admit to using some of Rep's assets for his script. However, this apology on their Discord would abruptly be edited and removed shortly after, and the reason is what you would expect from someone who was found of committing theft. Days before admitting to his crime, Quasar had released a 12-point document attempting to refute the allegations against him, though poorly. In his rebuttal to the case of Rep-Script, he would call the allegation baseless and claim the Vietnamese text in his script is purely coincidental, despite there being no logical reason for that text to be there unless he had copied it. And that's exactly what Warden thought as well, which is why he decided to blacklist his store. But Quasar knew that this blacklist would not only exile him from the community, but also every single one of the 32,000 members in his Discord. So, in order to avoid this, he went to a last resort. Rather than doing the right thing, Quasar had promised to admit his faults only under the condition that his store be unblacklisted. When Warden refused, however, that is when he retracted his admission of guilt. He would also begin a smear campaign of his own against Warden, telling his community that Warden wasn't a big deal, and also spreading defamatory rumors that Quasar was extorted into admitting fault, and even downplaying his guilty plea to his members. Even worse is he has also been found updating the scripts that he is alleged to have stolen after the Creator Justice evidence was released. So not only did Quasar refuse to apologize unless there was something to gain for him, but he was also actively trying to tear down other creators, releasing AI diss tracks clowning some of the scripts that other developers have released, and some of these creators are the ones he's alleged to have stolen from. But luckily for the developers looking for justice, it would be discovered that stealing code wasn't all that they were accused to be doing. In the world of features and scripts, there are two types of scripts that are sold by developers. One is what is known as escrow encrypted scripts, meaning that everything that makes the script unique is encrypted and can't be changed, a service that is offered by CFX. And the other type is unlocked, or open source as the community calls it, which are more expensive than encrypted scripts, but more of the code can be updated and changed by server owners. However, developers in the FiveM community have been plagued by a problem of decryption of their assets. Decryption of scripts, or unlocking as it's referred to, is when someone can bypass the encryption system set up by CFX and essentially uncover and steal all of the code within a script. The decryption problem has not only affected the developers making scripts, but also the 3D modelers for interiors and objects the audience would normally see in popular RP servers. Artists creating items like custom cars, interiors, in-game items, and any graphics that are set apart from the base game have been at serious risk of having their items decrypted and resold on malicious sites. It's believed that in some cases, artists have lost up to $200,000 from their assets being bought on resale sites instead of the actual artist. CFX even publicly acknowledged this problem as early as 3 weeks ago, but after all that time, no such patch has been made to their system to fix it as of yet. This context is important because it's alleged that Quasar has been connected to a notorious leaking site that uploads decrypted creators' work, a site known as vag.gg. For obvious reasons, using assets from this site are against FiveM's TOS, which is why CFX had to step in when an ad for Quasar Store was found on this site. Quasar claimed that it was his friend who made the ad and not them, and they promptly deleted the ad after CFX took notice. However, in the screenshot that was released showing CFX that they had deleted the ad, the community noticed that an account was logged into the VAG website, and I've had to blur the rest of the name out because it's been alleged that this is Quasar's full name. And one of the biggest clues for this was the document Quasar released to try and clear his name, which was credited by Fernando Quasar. This account on vag.gg was found to have a bunch of activities searching for certain decrypted scripts. Some of the scripts they were looking for would then later be alleged to have been sold in their store. After this evidence was brought forward, the name on the account would suddenly be changed to Edward Elric, the name of the main character in Full Metal Alchemist. So whoever owns this account seems to be an anime fan, and it would also seem that Quasar is quite the fan himself. What's even more damning in my eyes is that when this evidence was brought up, Quasar would switch his story about this screenshot multiple times. In his rebuttal document, he would outright deny that the account was his and acted immediately to have the ad taken down, but states clearly that the ad being taken down doesn't mean they owned the account. However, later in Discord chats, he would claim the screenshot showing the VAG account was edited by a third party and that he never sent that screenshot to CFX, instead sending the so-called original. This damning claim wasn't stated at all in their document, and as you can expect by now, Quasar would delete the majority of his rebuttal around the same time he was making these statements. But clearly, Quasar should have done a better job of hiding his tracks, since this screenshot that he claims to be edited was only posted as evidence after he sent it to the FiveM database. You can clearly see that this message was sent by Quasar to the FiveM database staff, which shows the original screenshot and was sent nearly a month before this investigation went public. All of the evidence regarding the vag.gg account is currently circumstantial, as there is no definitive proof to tie Quasar to the account. But when considered with the fact that they have already admitted to using other creators' scripts, it's no wonder that evidence like this keeps surfacing. By current estimation given to me by the Creator Justice team, it's been alleged that Quasar Store siphons upwards of $80,000 a month from creators' stolen scripts. As I mentioned briefly already, Quasar has written a long document trying to clear their name in the public eye. But from talking with insiders who better understand the statements and code, they've assured me that it reads quite like the Paradise response to my video on them. However, there is one crutch that Quasar seemingly falls back on quite a bit, that if he had done something wrong, then CFX would have stepped in to stop him. The community can blacklist him and provide new evidence of his alleged past crimes all they want. But without the intervention of CFX and Tebex, they can continue to sell their scripts on their store. Despite many attempts to share info with CFX, nothing has been done. Which is why this topic is actually the main point of this video. CFX and Rockstar's continued complacency. CFX has publicly acknowledged the breach in their system that allows people to decrypt and steal the original creator's code. And after almost a month, no fix or update has been made. Now they are faced with a situation where a massive entity in their script selling community has not only briefly admitted to stealing another team's script, but were also reselling it for profit on their own site. Stealing can only be called a crime if punishment is given out for committing it. However, even when faced with an admission of guilt, CFX has not done anything to right this wrong. In fact, CFX and Tebex actually congratulated Quasar earlier in the year for reaching $500,000 in sales in 2025, which again has been alleged to mostly come from stolen script. The developer community fears that CFX's lack of action is them turning a blind eye, hoping that everything will brush over until they can inevitably replace FiveM with Rome or whatever they have planned for GTA 6. But if this continues, then no developers will want to help support a company that has turned their backs on them and won't help them protect what they own. So, after being reached out to by the Creator Justice team, I am pleading with CFX to do something about it. A company that has admitted to stealing code needs to be brought to justice, and you need to fix your systems so that this doesn't happen in the future.